Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our new episode with a story about a contact center. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story: answering the phone at all times. This one happened in my old job. I worked in a contact center for a major company, handling both email, live chat, and phone queries for support or advice on products. Our supervisor at the time was a bit of a stickler for rules, and with it, few people actually liked them. One of these rules was that there shouldn't be more than a certain amount of calls waiting in the queue. There was a big LED board in the main room which displayed this information, as well as some other stuff like average call length, transfer rate. We were low-level support, so we often had to transfer to other more specialist or higher-level support, and others. Now, some desks had mobile phone headsets. These were basically mobile phones connected to the main system, which also had a tablet-type thing with them. You could access most of the main systems on the tablets and take calls in the same way as the wired-in desks. These were mostly used by staff in the offices who were dealing with physical paper records, invoices, letters, and the like. Now, one day the manager was coming down hard on call times as it was only just within tolerance. I think this was 8 minutes. So he decided to test people by calling and timing them for call pickup times. People got written up for being slow. Skip forward, and a guy I knew well wasn't feeling great. He'd been feeling unwell all day, but he was one of only 2 people in his department, business debt recovery, on site that day, so he decided to soldier on. Now, at some point, he'd had to go to the toilet, and he knew what his manager was like for people not answering calls about the test calls, so he took his headset with him, and the tablet. Beep! A call comes through. He recognized the number on the tablet screen as being the manager's mobile, and so answered it. It was at this point he released a barrage of brown stuff which sounded like artillery fire, all while taking the manager's call. The manager heard every single thing. He got dragged into the director's office about this and honestly said that the manager had told him that they must answer any calls as quickly as possible. So he did, and there was nothing he'd been told which said this did not include the toilet. The supervisor stepped down a week later. And our next story: should have just paid the rent. So this is a story about my parents around 7 or 8 years ago when I was barely leaving elementary school. I was really young, and my parents kept my sister and I in the dark at the time, but they later told me the gist of what happened. First thing, my parents owned 2 houses. They decided to keep the old house when they bought a new one so they could rent it out. The old house was in a decent area, but on the edge of the not-so-good part of the city, so it attracted a lot of the wrong crowd when my parents put it up for rent. After the horror story of the first tenant used a dumb loophole in our state in order to live there for almost 6 months rent-free, my parents found a single woman with temporary foster kids who was interested. Let's call her Bad Tenant, BT. She seemed really nice at first, housing kids who needed a home and selling homemade tacos from her taco cart. My parents did a background check and see that her income from the state for the kids should cover the rent and figure her side hustle would help her out. Everything is signed, and she moves in with her kids immediately. Now the wrongdoing. BT had decided to take in a lot more kids given that our house was larger than her previous one. I have nothing against these kids, and they're just victims, but they tore that house to shreds. I remember countless times of going with my dad to the house and handing him tools while he fixed a variety of broken things, especially the toilets and general plumbing. Eventually, my dad had enough and told her that all the maintenance he was doing was not required since the house was in perfect condition when she moved in and was not due to anything on my parents' part. We planned on moving back after my sister finished high school, so we replaced anything we thought would break and repainted it. Caused, by the way, too many kids in the house. This pissed off BT, and she stopped paying her rent. Just some backstory: my dad is a fair, reasonable guy, and I've never seen him give attitude to anyone, let alone yell. My mother, however, is your typical Hispanic mother who doesn't take crap from anyone. That being said, when my mom took me with her to pick up the rent where BT said some nasty things to my mom, she kinda lost it. The screaming match was awful, but there was no physical contact on either end, and it ended with BT basically stating she wasn't going to pay a cent until my dad came back and continue doing all the maintenance he was doing prior. BT was dead serious about this, and my parents had to take her to court. I later learned she only did this in order to stay at the house a little longer without having to pay rent. My parents were PO'd. This was the second time a tenant had gotten away without paying rent. At this point, I need to say I truly love my dad, but my mom is the most dedicated person I know. If she wants something, she'll find some way to get it. She was born and raised in Central America, traveled all the way to the U.S., went to school, learned English on her own, supported her brothers, and worked all the time. That being said, my mom was not going to let this woman take advantage of us. The first thing she did was head to child services with photos of the house condition, courtesy of my father, who always took photos of the house when he went over for the maintenance. They looked over and thanked me profusely for the evidence and told them they would look into it. Next, my parents got a lawyer who collected all the photos we took before she moved in to prove the house's condition before she moved in. Now, I wasn't in the courtroom, but from what my dad told me, it was the most satisfying thing he's ever seen. BT's lawyer was a huge joke and was obviously the cheapest and most inexperienced lawyer around. BT and her lawyer basically tried lying for every point they made, where my dad and his lawyer simply pulled out a photo or message, completely destroying their argument. Eventually, BT was contradicting herself, and the judge ruled in my parents' favor. Now my parents knew that they were not going to see a dime from the lady, given that she could no longer house kids. Whoops. It also turns out she was using her mother's name in order to house even more kids, which explains why they were given to her in the start. She was going to answer to that too. Double whoops. Lastly, just to put the cherry on the cake, my parents put a lien on her taco cart so she couldn't make money that way either. Effing triple whoops. And our last story. Of course, sir, let me transfer you. It was my first tour of duty at the mega corporation we affectionately called Big Blue. It was the early 2000s, and I was a lowly entry-level SAN admin, which meant I was responsible for answering the phones, emails, and entering changes, all the grunt work for my team. We had a shared environment with 36 24/7 locations around the world and 300 customers like Big Name Cola Company and Mouse Who Likes Roller Coasters. Most of our customers were good people, but we had a few bad apples. This is the story of how I got one of them fired. So it's a lazy Saturday, and I'm at work with my buddy, Kreskin, who's also a senior tech. We had the Saturday shift together for years and had a great time. Few calls, no management, and the only reason we couldn't play WOW was we couldn't get a good signal on an open Wi-Fi across the street. I should also mention that I am female. Call comes in, I open with my usual greeting. The man on the phone says, "Put a man on the phone, you can't help me." I ask what it's pertaining to, and he repeats his demand, so I go interrupt Kreskin's daydream to let him know some jerk is on the phone refusing my help and wants a man. He rolled his eyes and said to transfer the call. I do so, and I hear his side of the conversation. Kreskin, "Hello, this is Kreskin, how can I help you?" "I do apologize, sir, but unfortunately I'm not able to handle that request, but we do have an expert here who can. Let me put you on hold, I'll transfer you." He put the guy on hold. The guy just wanted a simple change entered for his team, something Kreskin could do if he wanted to, but he's not supposed to, as that's my job. So I go back to my desk and pick up the phone. Me, "Hi, I understand you'd like to open a change? I can help you with that." Customer, No, you cannot. Send me to a man. You are useless." Me, "Okay, well, I can, but he'll probably just send you back to me. Wouldn't it be easier to give me the info?" "No, transfer me now." Please hold. I walk back to Kreskin's desk, chuckling. He wants to speak to a man, so you're up. Kreskin figured we had nothing better to do and wanted to see how long we could pass him back and forth. I told him to put the guy on speaker so I could hear. He agreed, and I transferred the call. "This is Kreskin. How can I assist you today?" "Oh, good. Someone who knows what they're doing, instead of that idiot woman answering the phones. I am, jerk, account rep for a large customer, and I need an expedited change done immediately." "I do apologize, sir, but I'm not able to assist you. Let me get you over to someone who can." "No, you will help." Click, on hold, and transfers. I once again pick up the phone and give my spiel in my most perky voice, and all I hear is a roar. "Put a man on the phone." Being the good customer service rep, I comply. We end up transferring him back and forth 4 more times before he finally loses his mind. Me. Thank you for calling Big Blue. I understand you want to get a change open for you. Listen to me, you diseased bee. You will put a man on the phone this instant. I will not speak to a bee who can't do her job. Put a man on the phone. You can either deal with me or you can speak with my manager on Monday, but I will not take that abuse, and I refuse to assist you further. Please have a good day. Click. We both sent very, very detailed emails to our boss, and I also sent one over to HR. See, we were both full-fledged employees of Big Blue, and HR, at least in the U.S., takes a very dim view of such things. He was from another country but stationed here in the U.S. and was working on getting his green card. Bummer, too, because he only had like a year left before he got it. He was summarily let go and returned home. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.